Well, Anthony Albanese hasn't been in China long, but already the US is casting a shadow over his tour. Elbridge Colby, who's leading the AUKUS review, wants to know if the subs that we purchase from the US will then be used to help the US in any invasion by China on Taiwan. Derek Grossman is a former intelligence advisor to the US for Asian and Pacific security affairs, and he joins us now. Derek, it's good to have you with us today. Let's start with Mr. Colby's intervention. What do you think's behind that?
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, so I think the Trump administration has been very, very keen on working with allies and partners to counter China. And at the same time, they are curious to know and want to know how Australia and Japan and others are going to respond if China were to attack or invade Taiwan. And so that's what we saw in the Financial Times report from the other day. It's not particularly surprising, especially when you consider that AUKUS, as you mentioned, is a program to jointly build submarines as well as to do a lot of other things. It's very expensive. And Bridge Colby, the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, has also mentioned that the Trump administration is conducting a review of that program. And so this is not particularly surprising in any sense.
Do you think it's a moot point, though, about whether or not we'd use the subs that we buy from the US if China makes a move on Taiwan, which isn't expected to happen until next decade? So we wouldn't have the subs anyway. So, I mean, is it a pointless argument?
Well, I think it actually is more than just about the subs. I think it's about the alliance with the US and whether Australia, as well as Japan and others, are willing to support US military operations. And I think I would just point out that while I agree with your assessment that, if China were to attack Taiwan, it's probably not until sometime next decade. But I mean, over the last few years, we've seen reports on U.S. intelligence saying that China could attack Taiwan by 2027. And so there are earlier assessment, there are assessments that are saying China would do so earlier than what you had pointed out. And so I think that's kind of, the part of Colby's probing here.
Okay, well, on that question, we've had a response to that overnight from our Prime Minister, who says, our long-standing position is to support the status quo. So he's continuing to keep some distance on that. He's right now in China, so obviously he doesn't want to inflame things. How do you think that kind of response would be received in Washington?
Well, I don't think it would be particularly surprising in Washington because, as you said, he's in China right now. He doesn't want to compromise his meetings in any way. But and frankly, when he returns to Australia, I don't think that he would or should comment on that anyway, because there's a few things here. I mean, one is Australia shouldn't have to tell a close ally whether it's going to help the U.S. in the future. I mean, it should be pretty obvious. But secondly, circumstances are always unknown, right? And so if Taiwan were to declare independence and China were to attack, might that, change Australia and other ally and partner calculations? It probably would, right? And so some of it's inherently unknown anyway. And that's why I think I disagree with the Trump administration asking these kinds of questions. It doesn't really serve any particular purpose other than to anger and frustrate allies.
We've been allies for so long. I mean, do you think that Washington doubts our relationship at the moment if we were called upon to help?
That's hard to say. I don't think so, but I do think that there is kind of this energy within the White House right now, which is, trust nobody and do more on our own if we have to. And that, I think, is counterproductive. And I think that it is ultimately going to, another 3.5 years of this, is ultimately going to have some real negative consequences for our alliances and partnerships.
Okay. Do you think AUKUS is in trouble?
I don't. I think that AUKUS is a program that already has a lot of bureaucratic momentum. It is considered. I think the reason why the administration is calling for a review of it, or at least Colby's calling for a review of it, is because it's extremely expensive, and everything that costs any kind of money now is basically under review. So I don't think that we should look at that in and of itself as being sort of a red flag. I also think that once the president finds out more about AUKUS, it'll become clear that it's something that we should have in order to counter China within the Indo-Pacific.
Good to have you with us this morning, Derek. Thanks for your time. We'll chat again soon.